Welcome to our lesson for June 25th, 2022. I've got a lot of information today, and to complicate it even more, I have a 10-minute video that I want to show you that I think is important. And I got to try to keep it where it's short enough that you can keep your attention. And I've got a ton of information I want to share with you and pull things together, and it goes down a bunch of different rabbit trails or rabbit holes, we might call them. I've been on a quest since I was a young man to seek and to search and understand truth. I've intentionally not subjected myself to the teachings of somebody who was taught what they know by someone else who was taught what they know, who was taught what they know, and they've learned a very narrow scope of what they believe to be true. And when you get in deep discussions, it always comes down to, well, Sheldon, you just have to have faith. Well, that's pretty obscure. That's how people wind up putting on purple tennis shoes and drinking poison to catch the spaceship, because they had faith. The word in Scripture really means belief, and belief is depth of understanding, and it comes through knowledge. And we've got to gain knowledge. We've got to gain understanding. We're talking about our existence, entering into eternity, things that really matter. And I believe in the scriptures of what's called the Holy Bible. I believe there's knowledge and wisdom in a lot of the writings of Buddha. I believe there's knowledge and wisdom in the Zohar. I believe there's knowledge and wisdom in the Talmud. But I also believe that it all has levels of corruption by man over time. I also believe that our Creator, as we have the story in what would be referred to as the Judeo-Christian Bible, and we have the story of creation, beginning with Adam and Eve, and then coming through the New Testament into the prophecy and Revelation. I believe that it's very true. I believe that the narratives that are pulled out of it are often false. And I also believe that there's a lot more truth than what's just contained in this book. As we were told in Scripture, that these are just a little bit of the works of Yeshua. If we tried to write down everything he'd done, the world wouldn't contain the books just of Yeshua. So think about that. But today I want to talk to you about the law, the teachings. I want to challenge a lot of people's mindset. And a lot of you probably agree with me, and probably a lot of you could teach me. But the law, what we've been taught, the law, or the 10 Commandments, there was never a list of 10 commandments. And I know you say, oh no, it says the 10. No, that's not exactly the correct translation of what Scripture says. They're the teachings. And if you look, you'll see where Moshe brought down the stone tablets written front and back. And I'll put that scripture up, and I'm not going to take the time in this video to read the scriptures for you. As I reference them, I'll put them up, and you can hit pause and read through them yourself. Well, we see a reference to these stone tablets being written front and back. And as I was a young man, I was taught that these were laws, and God knew that there's no way we could fulfill these laws. And so he basically created the laws to show us how incompetent we were to actually earn his love. And so then he had to commit a human sacrifice and kill his son, his only begotten son, so that his human sacrifice blood of his own son would cover our inability to perform the laws, to adhere to the laws that he had set forth. Guys, that's not what Scripture says, and it's a complete injustice to who our Creator is, and it's an injustice to who we are. Do I believe Yeshua was a son of Jehovah? Yes, of course I believe that. But I also don't believe that our Creator created a bunch of laws to hold us back or to show us how incompetent we are. He created teachings. And again, it's mistranslated as law. Let me explain. We tell our children, don't play in the street. As they're small children, we say, don't play in the street or you're going to get a spanking. Don't play in the street or you're going to get time out, whatever you may choose. But we make a law, quote unquote law, but what we're really doing is we're teaching them not to play in the street. Why are we teaching them not to play in the street? Because we don't want to get run over and killed or maimed by a car or a truck. They don't understand the magnitude and the power of a motor vehicle barreling down the road, and they chase the ball out and it's over because they got hit and they didn't understand that. So we make a rule for them, don't play in the street. Our Creator is the life force, the power, the miltah of every essence, of every atom in existence, of all matter. And in that, the miltah, the existence, the power, the energy of all matter, of which our Creator is, it's in Him we move, exist, and are, as I shared with you last week. Every scripture tells us that everything that is seen is not made from that which is seen, but it's made from that which is unseen. Take a look at this. Look at this molecular structure here of this molecule. What do you think that is? Look at it. It looks complicated. Well, that's a depiction of a typical unit of air, the air that's all around us. Let me show you what the air that's all around us consists of predominantly. So take a look at this list. This list of air that exists all around us is unseen. We can't see it, can we? But there's nitrogen, oxygen, argon, carbon dioxide, neon, helium, methane, krypton, hydrogen, nitrous oxide, xenon, ozone, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, ammonia. All of those are elements or molecules that exist in the air. What is nitrogen? It's N2, 2 parts nitrogen. What's oxygen? O2, 2 parts oxygen. Argon is an element off the chart. What's CO2? It's 1 carbon atom with 2 oxygen atoms. And the neon, helium. What's methane? It's a carbon and a hydrogen, 4 parts hydrogen. Krypton, hydrogen, is two hydrogen atoms, makes up a hydrogen molecule. And so forth. Nitrous oxide, 2 parts nitrogen, 1 part oxygen. Two nitrogen atoms to 1 oxygen atom makes the molecular structure of nitrous oxide. All of this together creates air. Well, remember the element chart that we talked about last week that has 118 elements-ish, depending on which one you're looking at. And out of those 118 elements, everything in existence that we know of at this point is represented by those elements or that code that creates everything in all existence. And when you look at that simple air, look at how many of those elements are in the air that's all around us that's unseen. You realize one single atom is so small that a single human cell contains trillions of atoms. Yet within that atom, we have protons, neutrons, electrons. We have them moving at the speed of light around a nucleus. Well, and that creates everything that we see that is energy. It's energy. Again, as Einstein said, everything we believed about matter was all wrong. There is no matter. It's simply energy. From Albert Einstein. So think about this for a minute. Our Creator, Jehovah, I am what? Because we need a box. We've got to have a box. That's how we operate. We have to have a box. Our Creator, Jehovah, I am, created us all of one blood. In Him we move, exist, and are. The miltah, the energy, this life force, this power, was with him in the beginning. In English, the word was with Jehovah. The word was Jehovah. The word, capital W-O-R-D, or miltah, or logos, is the life force, energy, the power, was Jehovah. And out of that, all things created, which was created from what is not seen. And so he taught us how to live in this creation of energy that exists of our Creator. And he taught us how to live in such a manner that we resonate. We resonate in harmony. We resonate in a harmony with existence, with I am, with our Creator. And by doing that, we say to this mountain to be moved, and the mountain is moved. We walk in authority, we walk in dominion, we overcome. Greater works than Yeshua ever did, we're able to do. Why? Because we learned to resonate. Well, how do we learn to resonate? By the teachings. The teachings taught us to resonate. Well, what could that possibly mean? Well, because the earth, this world, this existence, our galaxy, it has a resonance, almost a pulse. We're gonna take time to watch this video. I want you to watch this.
An unknown scientist was about to make a discovery that could have changed everything.
His name was Winifred Otto Schumann. On the day in question, he was teaching his students about the physics of electricity, how a sphere within a sphere can create electrical tension, and subsequently, a frequency. Schumann's class had struggled to understand the subject, so to make it easier, the professor instructed them to imagine the Earth as one sphere and the ionosphere as another. He then asked them to calculate the tension that would exist in between. Having no idea himself, Schumann also began to calculate. Eventually, he arrived at a frequency of approximately 10 Hertz. As incredible as it seemed to Schumann, our planet had a pulse, a measurable frequency that surrounded life on Earth. Although the professor was proud of his find, he didn't see it as a hugely significant one, especially as it was only published in a small science journal, confined to the back pages, under the heading of Schumann Resonance. It would take several years, and an incredible twist of fate, before the professor would begin to realize the true importance of Schumann Resonance. That twist of fate had begun 30 years earlier, with another German scientist by the name of Hans Berger. Using an EEG machine he had built himself, Berger had made the first ever recording of electrical frequency transmitted by the human brain. It was initially suggested the wave be named after the man who'd discovered it, but Berger, being a modest man, elected for an alphabetical name and called it the alpha wave. Shortly after Professor Schumann's discovery, one of Hans Berger's colleagues, a man named Dr. Ankermüller, happened to stumble upon a bedraggled copy of a small scientific journal. The exact same small scientific journal that Professor Schumann's discovery had been published in several years before. He read the piece several times, shaking his head in disbelief. He realized instantly the magnitude of what was in front of him. The frequency of the alpha waves, recorded by Hans Berger, were almost identical to Schumann resonance. The frequency of the Earth. Dr. Ankermüller immediately contacted Schumann to convince him to investigate further. Schumann agreed and worked alongside one of his students to refine his discovery. They studied in detail how tension is discharged by lightning in the Earth's ionosphere cavity. Eventually, they came up with an exact frequency. The pulse of the Earth, Schumann resonance, was exactly 7.83 Hertz. The discovery was remarkable. Schumann resonance wasn't just similar to the alpha waves of the human brain, it was identical. The brain's frequency, which controlled our creativity, our performance, our stress, anxiety, and our immune system, had somehow tuned in to the frequency of the planet. The pulse of the Earth had become the pulse of life itself. The frequency of a wave is measured in hertz. This refers to the number of oscillations the wave makes each second. Frequencies range from a billionth the size of an atom to the length of the universe itself. In theory, frequencies are infinite, so ultimately endless. If this was a coincidence, it was nature's most spectacular. So what did all this mean? It wasn't long before somebody tried to find out. His name was Rutger Weaver, an acclaimed scientist from the Max Planck Institute. In the early 1960s, the professor constructed an underground bunker in order to examine the circadian rhythms of man. The circadian rhythm is the day-night cycle that is engraved into all life. Over a 30-year period, the professor conducted experiments in which student volunteers would spend several weeks at a time living in the bunker, completely shielded from the natural resonances of the Earth. In his results, Weaver noted some astonishing findings. He discovered that when Schumann resonance was filtered out of the bunker, the students' physical and mental health would suffer.
He took students down there. He didn't trust to do it with ill or old people. He took young students down there because he knew, Weaver knew that there would be an effect. So obviously underground you don't have Schumann resonance. You only have the transverse magnetic fields from in the Earth. So by putting them underground, they started feeling sick, having headaches. Their circadian rhythm was completely upset. The interesting thing was, when he just introduced the 7.8 Hertz frequency with a magnetic pulse generator, that immediately stopped.
Weaver would secretly introduce the 7.83 frequency to the bunker via a man-made transmitter. Each time he did so, he noted the ill effects suffered by the volunteers either disappeared or decreased. Their stress, headaches and emotional distress was reduced, and their sense of well-being was restored. All by the introduction of Schumann resonance. Weaver's research had revealed an incredible connection between human health and the natural frequency of the planet. And in 2011, groundbreaking research suggested something even more impressive, that Schumann resonance could be connected to the beginnings of life itself. The breakthrough came at the hands of Luc Montagnier, the Nobel Prize-winning scientist who first discovered the HIV virus. The professor was conducting water memory experiments, examining how water could retain a memory of substances that had previously been dissolved in it, when he stumbled upon something that would challenge the very principles of science. All life comes from life. This is a fundamental principle of science, and one which has never been violated in any experiment. Life can only exist where life has existed before. And the mechanism for this has always been understood to be a material one, such as egg and sperm, or spore and cell division. But Luc Montagnier's experiments have offered a very different hypothesis. The professor showed that DNA sequences, the very building blocks of life, communicate with each other in water by emitting low-frequency electromagnetic waves. Even when the DNA was kept in separate test tubes, the professor still recorded electromagnetic communication between them. How sophisticated could this communication be? Well, Luc Montagnier showed they are able to organize nucleotides, the ingredients which actually make up DNA, into brand new DNA. Science has combined these ingredients countless times before, but in no experiment have they ever been able to recreate the spark of life and transform nucleotides into actual DNA, not without DNA already being present. Life, after all, can only exist where life has existed before. But in Luc Montagnier's experiments, the DNA had been completely filtered from the water. Yet new DNA was still formed. Just how was this possible? How had Luc Montagnier managed to achieve what no other scientist could, and create life where no life was present? What was so different about Luc Montagnier's experiments? There was the presence of a frequency which, when removed, would cause the experiments to fail, but when present, would ensure that they would succeed. That frequency was 7.83 Hertz. Human resonance. A delicate relationship had been struck between life and the frequency of the planet. An interaction of living organisms and electromagnetic frequencies. A reliance. A bond. Evidence of this can be found by reading the science papers, but more obvious proof can be found by simply walking outside.
Did you see that? Our Earth actually has a pulse. According to Schumann resonance, that is a 7.83 Hertz. That the Earth, actually the pulse or the breath of our Earth, the existence. Well, again, you got to get your mind understanding there is no matter. Matter is simply energy. Our spiritual being is infused into this program of energy of which we exist. Well, what is that program made from? It's made from, it's the energy and the life force, the power of our Creator. And this energy, life force, power of our Creator, He gives us the teachings, the Torah. And what's He telling us? He's telling us to observe the Sabbaths, to have a day of rest, to give the land a Sabbath. Well, do we not know now that we're depleting our land? Our soils are being depleted and the nutrients are being wasted. Why? Because we didn't give the land rest. What about heart disease and stress disorders and all the different things that the inflammations that's happening to us as humans? We stop observing the day of rest. We stop following the teachings. Our Creator says simple things like, people make fun of it and go, well, what about not mixing your fabrics? What it says is don't wear shatnez. What is shatnez? Shatnez is a mixture of linen and wool. Well, why is that? That's silly. Why is that a problem? It's silly until you understand that linen has a frequency of 5,000 hertz and wool has a frequency of 5,000 hertz. So they're both very positive, very good fabrics to wear that are actually energy providing to our flesh and not a drain, like draining a battery, but actually are a source of energy. But yet, when you mix the two together, their waveforms cancel each other out and it's zero. So it actually is a drain. It's draining your battery. It's draining the energy and the life force out of your physical being, because our physical being is energy. And so Jehovah, our Creator, He didn't sit here and try to explain that. He just made the rule, don't play in the street. He gave them a law. He gave them a teaching I created everything, don't do this. You know, the real popular one, pig, don't eat pig. Well, why do you say don't eat pig? Well, don't eat vultures. You don't really have to be explained to why not to eat vultures. Well, vultures are nasty. They wouldn't taste good. Oh yeah, they'd taste good if you fixed it right. If you put all kinds of different spices and smoked it and did the different things to it, put niacin in it, and all these different things that you do to, for example, bacon, which is a big piece of fatty meat off a pig's butt, or his belly, or the ham off his butt, and we take that and we figured out a way to eat it that it tastes good. But a pig is a vulture. A pig is a creature that was created to clean up the earth. We live out here in the country and we have hogs that get on our property all the time, and they eat everything. They eat dead stuff. They'll eat anything. They don't sweat. They don't chew their cud. They're not made to be able to get rid of toxins. They consume toxins. Scripture says don't eat them. Why? Because they're filthy and they pollute your temple. What's the temple? The temple is our flesh. Our physical bodies now are the temple. Used to, you had to go to the temple that Solomon built, that David collected the material for, and you would go to the temple and worship. Yeshua destroyed the priesthood. He said, we are now the temple. Our flesh is a temple. What is a temple? That's where God resides. No, it's not where God resides. Get that thinking out of your mind. God is not an old man sitting on a throne, or he's not a fire pillar of fire or a column of smoke. He can present himself as that. He can present himself as a burning bush. He can present himself as a tongue of fire. Present himself as tongues of fire. But that's not who he is. Those are just ways that he presented himself. He did not live in the Ark of the Covenant. He did not live in the Holy of Holies in a temple. He is every single atom of all existence, is our creator. So what was the temple? What was designed as a specific portal, a place where the priest could connect, and where they could commune with Jehovah and bring in petitions of the people and bring in offerings from the people, and that was done at the temple. Well, today the temple's flattened, it's destroyed, it is no more. And as Yeshua said, that our flesh, our bodies are the temple. So we need if you look at how the temples were constructed, read through Scripture on how the temples were so specifically designed. The number of pomegranates in the capital. What if the man carving out the capitals in the stone decided, I think that's enough. No, they were very specific. The measurements were very specific. The loops and the curtains were very specific. The Ark of the Covenant was very specific. Why was it all specific? Well, it wasn't just to see if we could obey. It was because it was designed to be structured a certain way for the specific energy that was encased in the way it was handled and presented. Our flesh now is that temple. And our flesh is designed in that way. And so the energy, the power of our earth, the energy, this resonance, this harmony, our teachings, when Moshe came down from Sinai, that's not when these teachings were invented. These teachings always existed. Why was it wrong for Cain to kill Abel? Why was that wrong? Because they went against the very nature and the life force and the power or the teachings. Well, Jehovah's people, the Israelites, had been enslaved for 400 years. They had been in Egypt learning the ways of the Egyptians, and they were coming out of Egypt, and they didn't understand things. And so these teachings were represented to them by Moshe up on the mountain where Jehovah presented himself as a burning bush, and these teachings were presented, and it says, don't cheat your brother. It says if you borrow your brother's ox and you kill it, give him your ox or get him a better ox. Is that really rough? Is that a bad thing? We don't really, most of us have oxen, but you probably have a chainsaw, or you probably have a truck, or you ever borrowed your neighbor's weed eater. Well, if you messed it up, give him yours, or go get him a better one. That's harmony. That's how we live and cohabitate with each other. We live in righteousness, and these teachings were designed to teach us how to operate and how to live in harmony and in resonance with our Creator. Look, guys, I know shrimp is good, especially when you wrap it with bacon. But take a look at it. A shrimp filters 50 gallons of seawater every day. A shrimp is sitting there filtering seawater. Our Creator said, to take care of your temple, don't eat the filters. It's not that complicated. We have teachings, although, again, I believe we have to be careful, but we have teachings that teach us how to live in harmony and resonance with our Creator. Our Creator is everything. He is I am. And every single element on that chart that represents every single bit of matter we have in existence has a little tiny piece of single strand of energy, which makes up that atom that no one can explain where it comes from, except Scripture tells us, in Him we move, exist, and are. He hovered over the face of the deep and He said, let there be light. He said, let there be land that separates the waters. Let there be the heavens and the firmament above and below. He says these things, and they were so, created from what was unseen. What was unseen? Everything was unseen. Why? Because it was energy. But then as He created and manifested this energy, and it became atoms, and it became molecules, and it became matter, and we perceive it all as this matter, as our flesh. And He's teaching us how to live in harmony and resonance, to where when we need gold, we go get it out of the fish's mouth. We say to the mountain to be moved or to be cast in the sea, and the mountain is moved. Greater works than these you will do if you believe. Those are the things that Yeshua is telling us. Yeshua tells us time and time again to follow the teachings. He tells us that these teachings, he says in John 14, he says, if you love me, you shall guard my commands. He says, I shall ask the Father, and He shall give you another helper to stay with you forever, the Spirit of truth, whom the world is unable to receive because it does not see Him or know Him, but you know Him. For He stays with you and shall be in you. I shall not leave you orphans, I am coming to you. Yet a little while the world no longer sees me, but you shall see me because I live, and I shall live. And that day you shall know that I am in my Father, and my Father in me, and I in you. He who possesses my commands and guards them, it is he who loves me. And he who loves me shall be loved by my Father, and I shall manifest myself to him. How about John chapter 15, verse 9? He says, as the Father has loved me, I have also loved you. Stay in my love. If you guard my commands, you shall stay in my love, even as I have guarded my Father's commands and stay in His love. No one has greater love than this, that he should lay down his life for his friends. You're my friends if you do whatever I command you. Guys, I could go on for days going over these scriptures, and time just won't allow it for me right now. I'll follow up in some future teachings and we'll dig into this stuff more. But what I wanted to present to you today was that our Creator is the life force, the power, the energy of all existence. And what He provided for us in the Torah was to teach us how to live in such a way that we resonate with our Creator, with I Am, and that we're able to walk in that power, walk in that authority, walk in that energy, to where our spoken word, the power, the force of our spoken word, changes this flesh, this physical, which is not really flesh or physical at all. It's just energy. Stay tuned for next week. Thank you for watching.